Welcome everyone to the sixth-round post-fight show for UFC Albany, I should say. Don't want to piss off any New Yorkers. They're mad enough already after that main event.
How dare you talk funny about a New York card?
I'm joined by Eddie Mercado this time. Nate is off doing whatever he does in his free time. I have no idea. Best not to ask. But we are here to talk about a Fight Pass card that was pretty decent and not bad right up until that momentum killer main event that just sort of iced an entire building and a lot of people online. What did you think? Was it as bad for you as it was for everybody else?
Man, I try to see the positives in things sometimes. And I mean, there was a positive. I did like to see Derek Lewis go into the championship rounds and go in with that mindset of, hey, I expect to be around in these championship rounds.
Yeah.
So in that aspect, I like how he's working on his craft. I think that's a positive. Even if it's bad for, the fan that just wants to see him go out and brawl. But I thought it was a pretty entertaining card throughout. I mean, each fight was kind of back and forth. So, there was a couple one-sided, affairs, but I thought it was a pretty damn good card.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of the card had a lot of good action fights, a lot of fun. A lot of prospects showed up, a lot of fun bouts. Even the fights that weren't that good were like sloppy and fun. That Kish Yoder fight was back and forth and pretty decent, even if it wasn't the most technically pretty thing. I think the bad thing for a lot of people is just seeing like Derek Lewis is still very definitely a top 10 heavyweight. But he's not getting technically any better. Like, he's becoming more patient and he's trying to like learn to conserve energy. But he could not have thrown more garbage high kicks that got him taken down if somebody had paid him. Like, you could not pay him to throw more of those terrible high kicks.
And it was like religious. The beginning of every round, it's like, how can I get taken down right off the bat? Well, maybe that was his thing. It's like, how can I work on my ground game? Oh, I know. I'll go throw a naked kick and get taken down every single time and force myself to work on it. But
yeah, it's and that weird, like the weird taking a point for timidity thing. Like, I get some of that. Abdurakhimov was, I think it must have been partially too that like close up and live, there must have been some body language stuff that didn't translate over the camera, because on camera, like, I mean, he was the one hitting the takedowns. He was the one, like, he was at the very least pressing whatever advantages he had when he saw them.
And I think the timidity thing could have gone both ways, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's like Derek Lewis. Well, go after him.
Yeah.
Stop peddling yourself.
It's like, yeah. So to me, it was sort of, I don't know. Neither guy was fighting until one of them decided to commit, and then they would both. Then it was every exchange was just like, is Derek Lewis going to get taken down, or is he going to land one punch? So
yeah, and that's why it was kind of hard to judge the rounds. Like, do you award the control, or do you award the 3 strikes that were landed?
Yeah, I had Lewis down 2 rounds to 1 after the 3rd, and he was winning the 4th. So
okay.
he could have still won the fight even on points if he hadn't gotten a stoppage. But in the end, he finished it, and I think we just kind of have to be satisfied that, like, I mean, even Francis Ngannou could have this happen to him at some point. Like, heavyweight is just a weird, funky place where even the dudes that you're going to be most excited about are going to have these weird limitations. They're not going to develop right. They're going to get knocked out by some dude that you're absolutely sure can't knock him out, or get submitted by some dude you're sure can't submit him. It's going to happen. So we just kind of have to take it in stride with Derek Lewis and hope that at some point he either gets motivated to find better coaching, or he just sort of through osmosis gains better cage craft.
Yeah, but I mean, think about it though. He could have. I could have easily seen him lay down for the rest of the fight and just continuously throw those kicks and not, finally have the gumption to just say, you know what, screw this. I'm trying to go home. This fight's been going on too long. let me just take him down and pound him out. I feel like he could have done that if he just beasted on him.
Yeah, I do think there was part of it where he was trying to fight a much more careful, cautious fight that he'd planned on with like, oh, I'm going to be elusive and I'm going to kick and I'm going to stay outside and I'm going to conserve my energy. And then just being like, shit, this isn't working. I'm just going to go ape on this dude and knock him out. So.
And credit to him for always being able to get up somehow. His get up ability is phenomenal.
Like, yeah, he definitely, I mean, he can still get up. He's still hard to submit. He's still hard to control on the ground. He's just not any harder to take down.
Yeah, that's man.
It'll be weird to see him go. It'll be interesting to see him going forward because there are some fights where that can really matter. You know, there are dudes out there like, you know, like Josh Barnett who could, you know, pull him to the ground and make him really pay for that. And then there are dudes like Travis Brown who just may not really try to take him down until they're already hurt, you know? Heavyweight in the top, even in the top 10, it's a weird place.
It's definitely a weird place and an old place.
Yeah.
You know? So it's nice to see a fresh face moving up.
Speaking of which, let's get to the co-main event where it's much, much easier to be super excited about Francis Ngannou, who just went in there and decided that Anthony Hamilton had one arm too many and was like, yo, let me take this thing for you. And
yeah, I think Francis Ngannou, I think he's been studying those Caro Parisian DVDs from back in the day. That was awesome. That was so awesome. You never see that actually work out, you know, too often. Everybody does it. Everyone goes for it. You usually see a sweep from it, but rarely does anyone actually finish it. And he did it from knee on belly. He didn't step over the head.
It's something like you used to see it all the time with heavyweights back in the day because there was usually like a major strength advantage or major size advantage. You know, there were like 5 true heavyweights and there were a bunch of 6-foot dudes who were probably middleweights but loved to eat and take steroids. Like that was sort of how MMA worked back in the day. And so you saw those subs all the time, the power strongman sub. But these days, where everybody's like 6'4" and 250, you don't see people getting them that often. And Ngannou was just like, okay, I'm just gonna pull this off and whatever.
He's definitely special. Definitely special.
It's seriously like they got a, you know, like a Pro Bowl defensive end in the prime of his career who's like, sure, I'll do MMA. What the hell?
Do you think he'll get top 10 next?
Yeah, I gotta think they're just gonna give him a big jump.
What do you think about Derek Lewis?
That'd be an interesting fight. I mean, you gotta kind of think he might be able to beat Derek Lewis the way Derek Lewis still has these problems, but man, I don't want to see that yet. Like, give me that when they're both top 5. Give me that when it's gonna be like a title contender fight.
I need to see more from Ngannou.
Yeah.
I'm worried he's going to face someone that can actually get him down, and I need to see what he can do off of his back. I need to see him to get up.
So far, what he's been doing is standing up, which is the most important thing. Like he's got serious get up ability, more than Lewis even. I mean, Lewis has the ability to just like walk up and like do a bench press and stand up. Ngannou, you know, he actually like. And Hamilton hit that double leg and Ngannou just rolled through it and is on top. And you're like, what? No 265-pound dude does that. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes going forward. Before that, we had a light heavyweight bout. Corey Anderson against Sean O'Connell. Looks like Anderson may have retired O'Connell. O'Connell sent out was talking to reporters afterwards saying, this is it for me.
He had a good run, man. I've been an O'Connell fan. I feel like he's just one of the guys who made it. You know what I mean? And he's just, you know, I was drinking beer with him last Friday, and now he's Saturday. He's fighting in the UFC. Like, I don't know. I feel like he's a guy that the fans really got behind, and his hijinks at the weigh-ins was always fun. So, I mean, if he did retire, he's coming off of 3 straight losses, then, you know, good on him. Maybe he doesn't want to go to the regionals and do that whole thing. So
he's talking about broadcasting, which might be interesting. I mean, he's got a personality. He's written some books and stuff. He's not a dumb guy, but I'm also not sure. Like the UFC tends to like to give those broadcast positions to people that have like really endeared themselves and like carved out a solid spot. Like, you know, even Brian Stan may have never been a title contender, but he was a pretty big fan favorite by the time his UFC run was over. I'm not sure if O'Connell's that dude. Be interesting to see if the UFC has a place for him, if he ends up, you know, maybe in an organization like TKO or something. Or, well, no, he's not Canadian. I always think he's a Canadian because he fights in Canada. He fought in Canada all the damn time, but might be, you know, maybe another organization out there has a place for him. I know, you know, we've seen Kamaru Usman doing commentary for Titan FC and stuff like that. So be interesting to see where he goes from here.
Yeah, I mean, I'll follow him after his UFC career. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But how about Corey Anderson? I mean, I thought he looked dominant and great. You know, stayed on top, kept him down there. Started unloading some vicious elbows. I mean, he looked aggressive. He looked like, you know, what we thought he might have been. So I'm definitely excited to see where he goes. I
think the best thing that we've seen out of Anderson here is an evolution in his ground striking. Going from, you know, somebody who he's worked a lot on his boxing, obviously, in past fights. And when he's gotten takedowns, like he's been dominant and grinding from top position, but he hasn't really found a way to be a great finisher from there. And this looked like him finally showing that he can put together some real offense when he's on top. So if he can keep that up, he's got the wrestling game for it, and he's rounding out the rest of his game. And I mean, light heavyweight is so thin that he's absolutely, like, he barely, really questionably lost to Shogun, and Shogun is knocking on the top 5 still. So,
which is crazy in and of itself.
Yeah, that shows how badly they need new blood, and how long Anderson can stick around, even if he's never going to be a champion. You know, the division needs dudes who can just climb and win fights. So yeah, that's a great performance to see for him as a guy that, you know, a lot of people need to be more invested in, because he's going to be around for a while. I just wish he hadn't lost the nickname. Overtime? Come on. That's just a weaker form of Beast in 25-8.
The last thing you want in mixed martial arts is overtime. You know what I mean? How about first round knockout? Can we get that?
Yeah.
Be that guy.
Nah, Beast in 25-8. Overtime is just a weaker brand of that. So I'm not a fan of the nickname switch. Before that, we had a light heavyweight bout. John Vellante beat Saparbek Safarov, and man, Vellante did almost not win this fight.
You called it, man. You on the vivisection. I mean, you to a T. Even like before the fight, you tweeted it out. I mean, it went exactly as you said it was going to. Vellante looked great right off the bat. He was, you know, hurting Safarov, and then sure as shit, he hit that autopilot button, and then just, you know, checked out and bop bop bop, gets rocked, gets dropped like a couple times. Like he let this one-legged man back into the ass-kicking competition.
He really did. I mean, it's one of those rare times when a win downgrades both. Like, I mean, people are going to be more into Safarov now because he looks like Bill Murray in Caddyshack, and he fights like your drunk uncle. But like, so he's going to have some like niche cachet in the hardcore fan community. But it's really in reality, it's a fight where both guys get slightly downgraded off that, you know, and especially like getting downgraded off a win. You got to look at that fight for Vellante and be like, you had this, you are more athletic, you hit harder, you are more durable. I mean, Safarov blew out his leg throwing a kick, like, and you know, you're more technical, all these things, you're in better shape, and you just cannot beat this guy. Like, you are barely making this happen. And it's because Safarov has just got a ton of heart. And
dude, that first round seemed like it lasted 25 minutes. It was the longest round ever. So many momentum shifts, and it was back and forth. And it was one of the craziest rounds I've ever seen. It better win fight of the night.
I hope so too. That was just a crazy fight. And Vellante's got to look at, I don't know. It's weird to think where he goes from here, because he's at the border of the top 15, and he's been there pretty much his whole UFC career. And it's always been like, oh, he could go on a run, he could do something, and it's just, the moment he got in trouble, he started gassing bad. By the time that fight was over, he was shot to shit. I loved his post-fight speech, though. That was great.
Yeah.
It's just like, let's just go get a fucking drink, man.
Yeah, and he shouted out Joe Silva, which I like to
Yeah.
see.
Joe Sell was over there on his phone, like halfway through the shout out. He's like,
like, yeah, who are you?
yeah.
Who's this guy talking to me and why?
Poor Vellante. I hope he gets good and drunk and doesn't trash his hotel room.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know who he's going to fight next. I have no clue.
Yeah, I have no clue either. It's just going to be floating around in that like borderline. I guess. I mean, yeah, he's already fought Tom Lawler, maybe Ed Herman. I don't know. Like,
Does Ed Herman still fight?
Yeah, he just got beat by Nikita Krylov not that long ago. Nikki Thrills.
Yeah, Nikita Krylov. How about Corey Anderson calling him out?
I like that. That's a good call out. I hope that Krylov beats Serkinov just so we can see that fight. Yeah. I mean, I still want to see Krylov versus Latifi, but if we got to wait for that, then we got to wait. All right. Wow. Before that, we got Justine Kish versus Ashley Yoder. Pretty ugly, sloppy fight. Fun back and forth. Lots of funky grappling. Not sure I'm not super invested in either of these people going forward, though.
Yeah, for sure. But it was definitely a fun fight.
Yeah.
And, that second round was crazy. Like, there was this one sequence that was like submission attempt to escape to reversal to, another reversal to submission attempt. It was wild. And, I mean, I loved it. I stayed engaged the whole time. I was with it. The energy was high. And it was a close decision. The crowd didn't like the decision. I had it actually scored for Yoder. I gave her the first and the second. But, I mean, I could easily give the second round to either person. So yeah, I'm not upset with it.
I scored it for Kish, but I was actually pretty surprised that it went to Yoder, especially by unanimous decision. I expected a split, and I figured if it was unanimous, the judges might have seen Yoder winning it. Like, it just, like, the successful offense for both women was like 30 seconds per round of consistently successful offense for both of them. And it's just all about which 30 seconds you were watching, because all the rest of the time was just like a mash in between where neither of them was really getting anything done, but they were both working really hard.
Yeah. It looked like – it almost looked like the cartoons where it's just, like the cat and the dog are fighting, but it's just a dust ball,
Definitely very much that. Kish especially is just – Kish is relentlessly aggressive to a fault. She will just like run after anything, put herself in any submission, go after anything whenever she sees it. Before that, Randy Brown beat Brian Camozzi. Really fun fight, fun back and forth striking contest. Awesome knee that ended it for Camozzi. Won the fight for Brown. I'm really I like what I see from Brown. I think there's still a little, there's still problems in his game, but he's so dangerous and a lot better at a lot of things than people think he is.
Yeah, he's highly talented. I've actually got to speak with him before. He's a really cool dude and super athletic. And I think just with some more polish, he'll definitely be a big force to be reckoned with. I loved how he had that. He was going for the ninja choke and then just saw, hey, there's a face right here. Let me knee it. And Camozzi just flopped right off of that, and I don't blame him.
No, that was a crushing knee to the temple. Like,
so clean.
Clean. And the thing with Brown, because like you see him and people see him out there and they see him floating around on the edge, like counter punching, working this range game, and it's not bad, but it's not great. And they're like, this dude, he's flashy and athletic, but he's not that good. But the thing is his clinch game is fantastic. Like Brian Camozzi is almost entirely a successful clinch fighter. That is what Brian Camozzi does, and he had no success against Brown in the clinch at all. And Brown's also a sneaky good grappler off his back. Like he's trickier than you expect. So you have like a decent flashy striker from outside who's flashier maybe than he is good, but you add that to a really strong clinch game and a surprisingly good grappling game, and he's dangerous.
I think the same kind of flashiness can be said about his grappling, or his submissions at least.
Yeah.
He kind of catches those flash submissions. But what impressed me the most about this was how he was very patient getting out of the armbar. Like, he did the
Yeah.
spike, it didn't work. He, relaxed, stacked them, and just kind of, waited for the right opportunity to get out. And I loved it. He didn't panic. And Kamozi's no slouch on the ground,
Yeah.
He almost, he didn't have it full on, but it was damn close. And
They're
so
they're
I like.
really Kamosi and Brown are really similar fighters. Brown's just a little bit better an athlete and stronger in the clinch, where Kamosi likes to do the best of his work.
Yeah, and I think a little more smooth, a little more, a little more je ne sais quoi to him.
Well, that may come with the athleticism, being a little more coordinated.
Okay.
But so before that, we had a middleweight fight: Gerald Mearshart versus Joe Gigliotti. They rushed Gigliotti. He was a hyped prospect with a few good wins coming out of Power MMA, now up at Strong Style, and he's just not ready for the UFC yet.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but GM3 looked good.
He
looked
was
insanely composed, man. He had that Gunnar Nelson calm to him in there. He went full psycho in that fight. I liked it.
Well, he's one of those vets that, like, you can tell that he's never, like, I don't know. Well, he trains out of Rufus Sport, but you wouldn't really know that watching him fight. You don't see him and you're like, oh yeah, that's a Rufus Sport dude. Like, he seems like a dude that has just sort of collected skills from fighting a lot, and that's it. And so he's got a ton of cage craft everywhere. This super tricky wrestling game, this funky ass striking game, a slick sub game, but it's all just like weird and knowledge of being in the cage rather than like, nah, I've drilled this 1,000 times. It's like, nah, I've fought and done this 100 times,
And that's super dangerous. That is very dangerous. That's like Jeremy Horn,
Yeah.
That's how Jeremy Horn kept it. He's got like 1 million fights, and
Yeah.
he just had the time. I liked it. That choke he caught, oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was a nice
Phenomenal.
anaconda choke. From
the back to the guillotine to the anaconda, that was beautiful.
Yeah, I'm just interested to see if he'll stay at 185 or end up at 170 in the long term, because I don't know that he's ever, like, he weighed in at like 184 and a half this fight, and I don't know that he's ever weighed in more than 185 or more than that. Like, he's always been under the limit, and he's not a huge dude, so
it might take him running into someone that he can't grapple with.
Yeah.
Just because they're too big.
Take him to running into a few true middleweights, and then we'll see if he's still there. But, either way, he could be one of those funky, fun, weird fighters that maybe never goes on a huge run in the UFC, but you always enjoy watching show up, which middleweight is full of, so that might be the right place for him. Before that, Andrew Sanchez put a pretty good showing on Trevor Smith. I think Smith is a tough fight for a young dude, especially Sanchez has struggled to beat veteran fighters before. So I know he got a bit gassed late in this fight, but Sanchez pretty much cruised.
Yeah, it wasn't even competitive. I can't say that. It was kind of competitive. Like, Trevor Smith definitely had his moments.
Smith is tough as shit, and he kept coming forward. But
he did enough to not get any 10-8 rounds.
Yeah.
I'll say that. And it was okay. I wouldn't say it was necessarily fun, but, Sanchez definitely comfortably won that fight.
Yeah. It was like Sanchez was never in any danger in that fight.
Right.
Smith could never put together more than one big strike at a time. He was outclassed in the clinch. He was outclassed at range. He couldn't get his wrestling game going. Sanchez is showing he's got a really tough style to make work in the UFC. That, like, kicker from outside and then chain wrestler. He, shoots from long distance a lot. That's tough, and it'll be interesting to see it at middleweight. You don't see a lot of dudes doing that at middleweight. So, but he's at least proved that he's going to move forward in the division. Like, beating Trevor Smith is a solid proving ground to say, I belong in the UFC and I'm going to win here. Yeah. More so than a win like Khalil Roundtree.
Classic journeyman fight right there.
Yeah. Before that, Shane Burgos, Thiago Trator. This was a bananas fight, man. I mean, we talk about Saparbek Safarov versus John Vellante maybe being fight of the night, but Burgos versus Trator was an awesome fight.
Yeah, it was definitely fun. Shane Burgos, man, this dude trains with Jimmy Rivera and Tiger Schulman. Dude, he was pulling what was the name? Jerry Cannonier. He was pulling the Cannonier and just kind of dropping the hands and just walking at his opponent like, "Come on, punch at me so I can counter you." And it was fun. It was definitely fun. Trator held his own. I mean, he didn't bitch out, that's for sure.
People were calling him for flopping, but I'm almost absolutely sure he blew out his ankle or his knee or his foot on his left leg at some point in the fight. Like right after the fight, he sat down and was grabbing his left foot immediately. And because like when you looked at like when he fell over, it was when he was putting all his weight on his left leg. Like he would go for a takedown and get low, and then if he missed, he couldn't drive himself back up, and he just had to fall to the ground.
Yeah,
because he stayed standing in way too many brutal exchanges to be like, oh, he was flopping. Like if he was gonna flop, he would have flopped every time he was getting crushed by counter left hands.
Yeah, he's tough, man. He's definitely tough. I'm surprised he hung in there. He ate some pretty good, like some really solid left hooks.
He came back and he took it to Burgos late. When Burgos started fading and got tired, like Burgos had to take him down late in the fight.
Which was very smart. Very smart on him. And I actually gave the first round to Trator. I thought, he didn't do too much striking, but he definitely controlled Burgos against the cage, which Burgos really didn't have many answers to outside of a couple punches and elbows, which is, a big hole.
I'm still really excited for Burgos, though. I mean, this is a dude just 7 fights into his career, went pro back in 2013, now 8 fights, only 25. It's about a dude who's already had, like, major back and spine surgery. Like, at some point, if he's got more problems there, that could be a huge deal. But if that doesn't come up...
Hopefully not.
Yeah.
But how about him cutting his ponytail off during in between rounds? Was that not badass?
That was great. It's just like, fuck it, winning's more important than looking good. And, maybe somebody even told him it didn't look that good anyway. So
it wouldn't have been so cool if he lost.
No.
He'd been like extra pissed.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm super excited about Burgos, and I still feel like Trator, he looked bigger in this fight. Like he looked like he'd been putting some more muscle on, but it still feels a little bit like he may just not be physical enough for 145. Like a big problem for him was that he couldn't get the takedowns on Burgos. He couldn't get him down. And then when it was going punch for punch, he was getting overpowered.
Burgos also looks pretty big for the division.
Yeah. Burgos is huge, but, Trator is also... Like he went to a split decision with Clay Collard. He had trouble imposing his will on anyone in there. So I'm still like I like this fight. It gave me a lot more interest in seeing him in the future. But I do wonder if he's gonna end up out of the UFC before long.
But another thing, like, what was his game plan going in there? Like I didn't see any clear like game plan that he was trying to execute. He was just kind of responding. What was that?
I think he's trying to wrestle. I mean, back in his jungle fight days, his game plan was push his opponents up against the cage, lean on him, wear him out, and wrestle him and chip him away. And he's just not big enough to implement that in the UFC. Like, because he tried to take Burgos down all fight. He just, after the first round, he couldn't get anything going. And partially because he injured his leg and he couldn't get the drive on anything.
Yeah. A couple knee injuries on the night.
Yeah. Before that, Mark Diakese in a lightweight battle against Frankie Perez. Diakese I'm interested. He's going to have a tough road in the UFC. Like, he's a good prospect, but seems like his game is built kind of funky.
Yeah, that was definitely a weird fight. Kudos to him for doing what he had to do to get the W.
Yeah.
There's definitely something to be said for guys who can make adjustments during a fight and win it. So, there's that. But, 11-0 now. We'll see. I think he might struggle a little bit. I think he might have to, suffer a hiccup before we see like vast improvements or, something different from him. Because, I mean, I don't know. I don't think he kind of lived up to the hype in this fight.
Well, and that. I mean, it's hard, when the hype is that big, especially in a division like lightweight, where you are really going to be swimming uphill through, like, every dude in the lightweight division is really pretty decent. Like, it's not like middleweight or light heavyweight or some of the other divisions where you get a guy where it's just like, okay, you really should beat this dude. Like Frankie Perez had a ton of success before he got to the UFC. He was a solid fighter. It's just Dick Kesse's like his striking game is so many of the basics aren't there. It's so wild and out there. He gets way off balance. He puts himself over his legs. He throws all these out over his legs. He throws all these wild looping strikes. And without that, it makes his wrestling defense really questionable. And so you have like this offensive wrestling, really potent offensive wrestler with power who's just too wild to fight the way he does consistently against dudes in the UFC.
Yeah, I think, and also I didn't like the way I didn't like the takedown selection he had in that first round. I feel like he was trying to go for these power suplexes and just these power moves that zap so much energy from him. So when round 2 hit, he was a little petered out and spent a good chunk of that round on his back and got beat up a little bit. I mean, I like to see him overcome that adversity, but
he's a dude that's used to being way more athletic and way bigger than a lot of his competition. Like, he's used to fighting guys on a regional scene. A lot of regional scenes, that's one of the things is that, like, you get guys cut less weight. They don't have the same time, time to prepare. They don't have the same kind of camps. Divisions can be a little smaller, a little weirder. And I think Diakese is just used to being a big fish in a small pond, and now he's moving over to the UFC, and his game is not geared towards fighting people who are actually going to be competitive with him. So
he's going to have to pick up some polish somewhere.
Yeah.
And, who's he training with? He's with the All-Stars?
He's with All-Stars and Atherton Submission Wrestling, splitting time. I'm not sure that he was at All-Stars for this camp, but
okay, he's young too, man. He's only 23.
Yeah, he's young, so he can definitely grow a lot, He's just it's part of it, I think, is just the confidence of youth, being young and being super confident and having to go out and make mistakes.
And being undefeated.
Yep.
He hasn't had to learn a lesson yet, really.
For that, Ryan James and Keith Barish had a slobber knocker, really. Just a no defense, all offense, no wrestling, no grappling. Two dudes just throwing hands at each other. James won that fight, but he is headed towards a bad knockout at some point.
Yeah, Rock'em Sock'em Robots. James was supposed to fight Josh Emmett, actually.
Yeah. Wait, no. What?
Yeah, he was supposed to fight Josh Emmett at UFC on Fox 21.
No, it wasn't. Emmett's a lightweight. This is a middleweight.
Oh, yeah? No?
Who no. Of? He was supposed to fight Adam Hunter.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Who failed his drug test and was like for 5 substances. Dude was taking like everything.
Yeah, that's right. That guy. How long did he get for that? Do you know?
He got full 2 years.
Okay.
So.
And how long did Machida get?
He got 18 months. Something
Man.
that is not even necessarily maybe a PED.
I mean, I'm pretty sure you can get that DHEA at GNC or
the 7 keto thing. Yeah, it's like a super common supplement. Anyway, James, like it was a fun fight, fun middleweight action. We talk about middleweight's full of these weird dudes, but James, he is stiff as hell, and his chin is right up there to be hit. And Barish, like somebody who hits harder and cleaner than Keith Barish, is going to knock him out hard at some point. Before that, Juliana Lima beat JJ Aldrich. One of the better performances of Lima's career. Still not thrilling, which kind of tells you what you need to know about Lima as I highlight reel.
Yeah, I actually decided to take a shower during this fight, so I was just listening to it. But from what I heard, it was the first ever female ball shot.
Not the first, but it was definitely like the ref, she hit her low and the ref, Lima hit Aldrich low with I think it was like 3 punches against the clinch or something, in the clinch or something.
I was in the shower. I was just listening to it.
But I'm pretty sure it was punches. And then the ref, he separates them and he calls time and he's talking to Lima and he's, like, you can't strike it. Those are low blows. You can't strike it there. And Lima just pointed at her crotch and she's like, what are you talking about? Like, there's nothing down there.
I heard the ref. He was like, hey, it exists.
I know. I'm just saying that was her. The ref even had, the ref was like, no, it exists. Trust me. It was kind of amazing. But Lima, she's in a weird spot. She's only lost. The only people she's lost to are Invicta and UFC champs. That's it. Catch Campa, the Invicta strawweight champ, former Invicta strawweight champ, and then Carla Esparza and Joanna Jędrzejczyk. But she hasn't beat anyone super impressive lately. She's got a good wrestling game, better than most. Opened up her striking in this fight, which is nice, but without the finishing ability and without like a super dominant performance, she's just not getting anybody excited.
And definitely not. You gotta wonder what her ceiling's gonna be.
Well, like I say, it's weird. Like, I think she's kind of like a sleeper top 5 strawweight right now. That's like down in the bottom 12 to 15, where it's like, you really telling me that she couldn't beat Rose Namajunas or Tisha Torres? Because she probably could, just like wrestle him to death. She's big. Like, maybe not. But like the top of that division is not super well proven. These are not fighters that have a great track record of elite success. So it's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird to see her floating around down at the bottom, but that division's still got a lot of sorting to do.
As do a lot of UFC divisions, actually.
Yeah, especially, the women's divisions especially, just because they keep lagging behind for fights, but strawweight's got a ton of influx of talent. Like, they've gone up to 40 fighters really quick, and there's just a lot of people who need fights and a lot of sorting, a lot of people who have climb that division really quickly without necessarily beating any top competition. So, on that note, I think we're going to wrap things up here. You can find me on Twitter at TheZaneSimon. You can find Eddie on Twitter at TheEddieMercado. You can find both of us over at BloodyElbow.com. We'll be, we got all our writing and all our stuff there. We'll be coming back for a 6th round tomorrow night. That'll be Eddie and I as well for UFC 206. Then we'll be gearing up next week for, I believe that's UFC on Fox 22 with Watterson versus Van Zant. So we'll have all the shows and all that stuff for you. But I'll be back tomorrow to explain all this to you all again. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you next time.